G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to talk to you guys about something really interesting that I find clinically in regards to low back pain. And specifically, or more specifically, a certain type of back pain. So if you have this back pain, again, you've probably seen the thumbnail by now. If you have the exact type of presentation that I'll be referencing in this video, please take the time to check out what I'm about to tell you, because it could legitimately be the missing piece to the puzzle that you may or may not have been searching for or didn't know that you needed to find to solve this problem long term. And I don't say this lightly, but this type of back pain that we're going to talk about today is probably the most common type of back pain that I've seen over probably the past 12 to 15 years as a physio. And I haven't seen a case yet who has this type of presentation that isn't missing something a little bit more intricate in their diagnosis and their treatment plan. So please bear with me as we go through this, but I'll hopefully show you how to solve this problem long term towards the end. But I want to make sure that we talk about this in depth, because I think it's something that we miss a lot. So again, as you've probably seen in the thumbnail by now, the type of back pain that we're talking about here in the video is that band of back pain, that low back pain that tends to feel like it goes across that lower back. So obviously I'm showing you from the front, but if you can imagine that you've got a band of back pain, maybe at the top of your hips, it may not be pain that goes all the way across from the left to the right hand side. It could be one side out to the side. It may also be a type of back pain. Again, so we're showing you this pain across the back here, but it may also be pain that's on the one side, or it may also travel, or it feels like it's around the hip a little bit as well. But it's a really common presentation, and for a lot of people, that pain sort of seemingly come out of nowhere. Even if there's an accident that created it, I still need you to think through this with me as we go, because you could be missing something really important. That back pain doesn't always feel specific, so you may not be able to dig your finger into an area and feel the exact area that your back hurts, but there's like a general feeling of pain in an area. It might be more localized towards the base of your spine as well, but it may sort of come out a little bit more broadly than other types of back pain. Now, again, we want to make sure that we're not going into the territory of talking about disc issues, nerve root issues, stenosis, stress fractures, all those sorts of things that are quite important things to diagnose. But even if you have been given that diagnosis, again, bear with me as we go through this and double check this on yourself, because we could be missing something if we're not looking for this. So basically, what I'm finding clinically is that this band of low back pain, or this back pain that's on one side, maybe goes into the hip, maybe not, may not actually be coming from this part of your body. And it's really important, because as a medical industry, as soon as you tell someone where your back pain is, we're very quick to zero in on that area and start to look for disc issues and nerve issues and joint issues and all this sort of stuff as the root cause of your pain. However, what I'm finding is that, and this may not sound that interesting to some people, but it's really profound for me, is that this band of low back pain, or this distribution of pain, may actually be coming from higher up. And we're talking about the junction between your thoracic spine, so the base of that rib cage, and the top of that lumbar spine as well. And this is really important, because that section, that thoracolumbar junction where your rib cage meets your lower back, is legitimately one of the only parts of your spine that can refer to another part of your spine. Now, I'll do my best to get the dermatome image up on the side here, or somewhere on this as well. My editing skills aren't amazing, but when we're talking about dermatomes are basically the origin, a fetal origin of a lot of our tissue. So when we're born and when we're developing as a fetus, our arms and legs and all of our tissue comes out from and permeates out from the spinal cord, that central part of being a fetus. So the sections that they correlate to, hopefully shown by this image, are basically where things can refer to. So again, that base of the spine, the base of that low back, can actually be a referral pattern from this central point at the base of that rib cage, the top of that lumbar spine. And again, if you have some pain that goes into your hips, maybe around into your groin, that's often a dead giveaway. But what I see a lot is far too many people will be diagnosed with a lower disc issue or something like that, particularly when they have this presentation, when in actual fact their pain's actually coming from higher up, and that disc is just there. It's not necessarily pain sensitive. It can still be sensitized by that upper section, but the disc may not be the generator of pain that we often think it is. So this is why it's really important, because I had this patient probably 5 or 6 years ago now, who came in to see me post-op. So she'd had back pain for maybe, I think it was maybe 5 years, 5 or 6 years. And she had that pain sort of at the base of her spine, top of that sort of coccyx bone, sort of radiating out in that sort of central area. So she had significant surgery to replace a disc that didn't look great. And she came in to see me a couple of weeks after having had that surgery. She was going well, she was recovering really well. But her words to me were that her pain felt the same as it did pre-op. And that was quite disconcerting for her. It was quite frustrating for her, because obviously she'd gone through this whole process to have her back operated on, have that disc, changed and removed, and the cage put in, all this sort of stuff. And her pain felt the same, and she was very disheartened for obvious reasons. So the interesting thing is that once we just gently worked above that area, felt through the joints in the spine of that T12, L1, L2 area, as soon as I started pushing on one of the joints of her spine, she felt the pain down low go away. And now again, it didn't disappear completely straight away, but the fact that I could push on that spot and resolve the pain that surgery hadn't fixed and time hadn't fixed, the more we did that, the better it felt. And then in a matter of days and weeks following that appointment, we were able to change her pain significantly just by freeing up those sections of her back. And the troubling thing is that no one had taken the time to look for that stuff to begin with. And if they had, she would have avoided surgery, plain and simple. So it's really important, and really solidified to me that this area of the back is so significant, and you can figure it out for yourself, which we'll do in a second. So I want you to play along with me at home. But if you're not looking higher up, then you may be missing the underlying cause of that band of pain, or that distribution of pain in that area and down through the hip potentially. Unnecessarily. We've got to fix this sort of stuff up. So again, the reason why you're probably here, hopefully, is to figure out how to solve that. So as we always do in these videos, I don't want you to take my word for any of this. I obviously want you to feel like you can trust me and that what I say is truthful and honest and honorable. But ultimately, you don't owe me anything. You've just got to figure this sort of stuff out for yourself. So a really good way to do this is you can figure out how important that area is for you with a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball. Again, if you've been a part of this channel for a while, you'll know how important this ball is in solving a broad range of things that crop up. But we're going to use it again, or you can use a foam roller if you want to, depends on what you feel most comfortable with. But we're going to do this exercise so that you can hopefully figure out straight away in real time where your pain may or may not be coming from. So what we want to get you guys to do is we're going to avoid this lower section, of course, but we're going to come up to the base of that rib cage. So it doesn't matter where you start, but I'll get you to start somewhere in the middle, so where the bump is, and just let the ball roll off to the side, either to the right side or the left side. And then we're going to get you to lie down on top of the ball and go looking for these areas. So what you'll expect to find is, what I want you to take note of is, take note of how well the ball sinks into these areas. Does it feel stiff? Does it feel tight? Does it feel tender? Because it may not feel tender for a lot of people. You may have no overt pain walking around in this part of your body. So it's okay if it doesn't feel horribly sore here. But what you'll notice is, if you can move around a little bit, just gently move the ball sort of up and down, maybe a little bit out to the left, go looking for the areas that feel tight, stiff, or tender. And in time, what you'll hopefully find is, if you can find a spot that feels those in those ways, then I don't want you to roll around on the ball. I just want you to stay here and let the ball press in. And what you'll hopefully notice is, when you hit the right spot, you may feel those symptoms in your lower back start to change. They may increase slightly, but more often you'll feel like it'll start to take some of the tenderness out of those areas down low just by being up a little bit higher. So essentially the ball's here. So where my finger is where the ball is, and down low here is often where you feel those symptoms around the back. So not through the front, obviously around the back. But if you can hit the right spot, what you deserve to feel if it's connected is that it starts communicating with that section of your back. And ultimately, as this frees up, you can hopefully expect those symptoms to start to regress and resolve as well. And if you get any of those symptoms in relation to where you put the ball, then it's obviously where those symptoms are connecting to. Now, if this part of your back's been really stiff and tight for a long time, it might take a couple of goes to free this up, but the very first step is to make sure that you give yourself confidence that you're not wasting your time by being down here. And if you can move around, once you've spent enough time in one spot, move it up a little bit, find the spot that feels the most interesting to you, keep repeating this process, come up a little bit, go down a little bit, compare it to the other side as well. And again, as we say in the channel, make sure that you feel like you're following the stiffness more than the tenderness. So if it feels really tender on the right-hand side, even if that generates all of your pain on the right-hand side, but the left-hand side actually feels stiffer and tighter, you've got to spend more time on the stiffness because we're trying to release that stiffness and tightness and not irritate a sore spot. So ultimately, even if you have pain, a band of pain extending into that right-hand side down low, you may actually end up being on the left-hand side. So just to give you a visual here, it'll be easier. So if you're having some pain in this area, for example, you may actually end up being not only a hands width or two higher than that, but you might actually end up being on the other side of that in order to release all that and to settle it down. So it's really, really important you take the time yourselves to figure out where the exact spot is for you. Obviously, if you go in and take this information to your physiotherapist or your physical therapist, have them palpate around, feel those joints, dig into those joints and get a sense of where you're stiff and tight, you'll hopefully be able to, in real time, connect the dots between that high section of your back and where your pain genuinely is. So I really want to stress that it's a really important feature of this band of low back pain that gets missed a lot, because this area higher up doesn't often hurt. It doesn't often give you much information to go on that it's problematic there until you dig something or someone digs their thumbs into those areas and looks for it specifically themselves, which is why it's missed a lot. So please don't miss it, because it's vital, particularly, as I said, if you're someone who is about to have surgery for that type of presentation, do yourself a favor, lie down for 5 minutes, dig a ball in, get someone to push through there, see if you can figure it out for yourselves, because it could legitimately change the course of your thinking and your rehab program. As I said, it gets missed far too much. So that's the main thing I wanted to get across here. To tie all this together is that it's really important to understand how it happens in the first place. And what we like to do on the channel is we like to make sure that we really understand the reason behind everything. So if you figure out that your low back pain is actually coming from a little bit higher than you expected, there has to be a reason, a very specific reason why this section of your back has become problematic in the first place and got to a point where it is driving pain down somewhere else. And again, the most common reason that I see for this is very simple. It's often just that section of your back is the section that you'll be hinging through without realizing it, doing your day-to-day tasks. So that can be sitting on the couch, watching TV, sitting on the computer, driving in your car, sitting up in bed, reading a book, doing something like that, where you're creating a distinct hinge through that part of your back without realizing it. Over time, that increased load that goes sort of through that area, as that area sort of hinges a little bit, the extra load that goes through there asks your tissues to cope with that. So they get stiffer, they get tighter. Maybe you're off and twisted a little bit. So if you're resting on an armchair or you're driving a certain way, that can generally explain why one side of your back is stiffer than the other, or the joints on one side are stiffer than the other. And you'll notice that when you put the ball in either side of that spine. We want to make sure that not only are you freeing up those sections and hopefully reducing the amount of local dysfunction there, but if you're not then putting yourself back into a good position again and potentially rolling up a towel or a pillow and jamming it in there to fill that gap with something other than your back, then if you can do that successfully, then those joints won't keep getting stiff and tight, and you can start to get to the point where you're moving away over time from having that problematic area. So as always, it's really, really important to understand that your daily postural habits, the positions that you put your back into, count. And we need to make sure that you're doing that successfully to fix this long term. So if you went on to enjoy the video, if you found it useful, please let me know in the comments below and leave a like on the video. It'll really help us out. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you are new, just so that this channel can grow, and hopefully we can get more people to see these types of videos, because I think it's really important information long term. So with that being said, thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next time. Bye.